Welcome to Business Mastery with Dawn Kennedy, your quick under 45-minute dose of expert insights and strategies to make a positive impact on your business and life. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. Today, we're talking all about how to fit video into your marketing. And we're going to talk about all the reasons people don't do it and how we can get around that. And then why it's so valuable and maybe you should consider it. So I brought Andrea on and we're going to talk about all things video marketing. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for inviting me, Dawn.
Can you tell everyone who you are and who you serve?
Well, I'm Andrea Stenberg, and I work with coaches, course creators, and really any heart-centered entrepreneur who is as passionate about helping their clients as they are about growing their business. And I work with them to use video to connect with their audience and increase their visibility and actually grow their business. So it's not just about, getting likes or follows on all the social media. It's about using video to actually move people closer to becoming a client.
Yeah, that's so important. We had a discussion at that long ago about, how to get conversion, right, from all of your effort. So it's very important. All right, so let's start with the most, obvious thing. Why are people resistant to using video if they're not already doing it?
Well, I think there's three main reasons. So first of all is the tech. People get intimidated by the tech. And I understand that. The first time I tried to edit a video, I nearly threw my computer out the window. Like it was a close call on that one. The next thing is people aren't really sure what they're supposed to be saying. Like people are telling them, you got to do video, you got to do video. And it's like, well, what do I say on camera? And then I think the third main reason, and I think particularly for women, is they really feel uncomfortable with how they look and the visibility. Because let's face it, as women, we get judged a lot more than men do. And there's also this fear of if I make a mistake, it's there forever, and people are going to judge and point at me or throw rocks, or my business is going to fail because I make a terrible video. And I think that's almost universal. Even people who are really good at video, I hear people saying those things, that's what they're worried about. That's what they hate about video.
Yeah. And I mean, we judge ourselves harder than I think anybody else judges us. We look at things and, I don't know how many times people record something and then they delete it and they record it again and they delete it. And by the sixth recording, they're like, forget it. I'm not doing this. I'll write a blog. Right. So it's such a really good point about that. But let's go ahead and start with the tech and how that frustration may be really limiting people who would otherwise do video.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I really encourage people who are just beginning to use live video. Because if you use live video, then you can just completely forget about the editing. You don't have to edit. You can just go live. And you just have to be able to find the button to turn it on and the button to turn it off. And then in between, it's just look at the camera and speak. So that simplifies it a lot. The other nice thing about live video is when people know it's live, nobody expects you to be perfect. Mm-hmm. Think about if you're watching the news or a sporting event or something that's live. These are professional broadcasters who went to school to learn how to speak on camera, who do that all day, every day. That's what they get paid for. And they stumble over words or, forget something or make a mistake. And we're okay with that. So if the professional broadcasters can make a mistake live, those of us who are business owners and are doing video to market our business, but that's not our primary business, nobody's going to judge you. You might judge yourself, like you said, but the rest of the audience just cares what you have to say.
Right. So what platforms do you think are best for, going live, especially if you're practicing, or let's say that you put it in your mind, I'm just going to go live a couple times and see how it feels? Because I do know that we get in our own heads around this. So where do you go live I don't know. And we talked, or you mentioned a little bit about the vanity metrics, right? So what happens if I go live and only one person sees me? Can we talk a little bit about overcoming that and where we should try to go live first?
Well, I mean, one of the nice things about going live, like if you've never gone live before and you haven't done a lot of live videos, the reality is if you go live, especially if you don't tell people ahead of time, you're not going to get lots of people watching your early videos. And that's actually a good thing, because when you're at your most nervous and you're most likely to look like a deer caught in the headlights and you're most likely to stumble over words and not sound natural, you're not going to get very many people see you, because the algorithm, and we all know like social media algorithm doesn't show your content. So while you're practicing and learning, you're not going to get as many viewers, which is, it's sort of like if you're trying to be a speaker and speak in front of a live audience, maybe the first time you practice in front of your dog, and then maybe you practice in front of your kids, and then you practice in front of a small local group, and you build up over time to speak in front of an audience of 1,000 live people. And it's the same with live video. When you start off, you can start with a small number, you go live, maybe nobody will show up live. And then as you get consistent and start implementing strategies to like let people know in advance that you're going to go live, or let people know after the fact, then you can start building an audience. But the other interesting thing about live video, so there's a coach that I work with, and she had a live video coming up about something I wanted to learn. And I was like, okay, I put it in my calendar, and then I showed up live because I wanted to learn this thing. And the thing is, this person, she has like tens of thousands of viewers. And whenever she's on a live video, every one of her videos has 400 or 500 comments. So never mind just viewers, but 400 or 500 comments. And so this one day I'm attending her live video. And then I noticed, just from looking at things, that I could see there's only about 5 of us watching live. And I was really puzzled. I was like, what's going on? Did like an earthquake happen or aliens land? Like that's why nobody's showing up. But I stayed, learned the thing I wanted to learn. And then the next morning I was like, I'm curious. So I went back and looked at the replay of the live video. And sure enough, there were 500 comments on the video, but only 5 of us showed up live. And that's kind of the nice thing about live video, is you don't, like, people will watch when they want to watch. And so you don't need to worry about, okay, I'm going live and there's my mother and my best friend showing up live and nobody else is here, because you don't know who's going to show up later when it fits their schedule.
Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, so you do the live, you leave it out there, people will come and watch it. Maybe they won't, but maybe they will. And it's good practice platform. So second part, what do you want to talk about? Now, I can imagine that's probably more of a sticking point for people than actually like going live.
Well, yeah, it is more of a sticking point. But the other thing is there are different types of videos for different stages of the client journey. And I think everybody thinks video marketing is one size fits all. And it's the same with, blog posts or, regular posts on social media or your email marketing. You have different content for different goals and different audiences. So you might, for videos where you're trying to get discovered by new people, those are going to look and sound different than videos for people who already know you and you're trying to deepen the relationship with them, get them to imagine themselves working with you. And different videos for, okay, I'm in launch mode. I'm launching my new course. I'm launching a new program, and I'm trying to get people to actually sign up. And you might have different videos for people who are past clients and you're trying to keep in touch with them so that down the road, if they're ready to work with you again, or maybe they know somebody and send referrals, you do different videos. So you need to think of your video marketing in connection with your overall marketing and try to make content for different pieces. And then the other thing is, like, just like all content marketing, like you don't send one email and go, oh, I'm done. I never have to send an email again. No, you have to keep in front of people. And it's the same with video. So you make one video and you have to do another one and another one, because you don't know when your ideal client gets the idea in their head, oh, I need what you have to offer. And then they see the video and go, oh, that's the person who's going to help me. So you have to it has to be consistent, but there's different types of content.
Do you think when we're doing video, because it does stick around and, you can maybe find things months or years later, that even though the message may change from, let's say, awareness, education, right, and serving clients, and just people in general with what they need, that we should be aiming for evergreen type content as we're doing the videos? Or how do you feel about doing videos that are marketing something in the moment that if I find it 2 years later, it might be, well, that passed 2 years ago. Is that still okay?
Well, it really depends where you're posting the videos. So, for example, when you're doing videos on Facebook, it is extremely rare that if you did a video 2 years ago that somebody's going to come across it. If you're uploading videos to YouTube, that's a very different situation. Videos on YouTube are absolutely evergreen because YouTube is a search engine for videos. It's not just a social media platform. So it does depend a little bit on where you're posting them. But the other thing is like if you're an expert, so say you're a coach and maybe you've created a video that's launching a program that you're doing today and somebody finds it a year from now, odds are your overall message, your overall philosophy of how you work with people, your style, your personality hasn't changed a lot. And even if this particular item isn't offered right now, it's still giving them a taste of who you are and how you work and what are some of the solutions you offer. So it's giving people a chance to get to know you. And then, of course, on social media, like most of the platforms let you, for example, LinkedIn, you can have featured posts. So if you have a video that really highlights, that's who you are and how you work with people, even if it's not specifically offering, you can put that on your profile. So when new people come to your profile, that's one of the first things they see. Likewise, on Instagram, you can pin. The first 3 posts can be pinned. So you can put more evergreen content in those places. So when people discover you, they see the things that you really want to highlight. And the other content is just not going to be as evergreen if it's on social media than if it's on your blog or on YouTube.
These are great points. So let's talk about the length of videos. I can hear it. People now, it's like, what is the best? Is it reels, right? Are these 30-second, 1 minute? I think TikTok at one point wanted at least a minute or 3 minutes for monetization or something. And the videos length, it seems like sometimes they want longer, sometimes they want shorter. YouTube seems to like the longer form, but then they also have the shorts that they started doing. Let's talk about that, because I'm sure that is something that people consider too. It's like, okay, I can make myself go on to video. I can get the content I want to put out there, but now how long do I need to speak for?
So after what do I say on camera? That's probably like that's the number 2 question I get asked from people. And I hate to say the answer I have is a terrible answer. And the answer is it depends. And it depends on a bunch of different things. It does depend on which platform you're on. It depends on what your audience wants. And it depends also on your skill as a videographer and speaking on camera, because, going for an hour, you have to be really, really know your stuff and be really comfortable and confident and interesting for an hour. That's hard. Likewise, being able to say something of value in 8 seconds on an Instagram reel is also challenging. So some of it depends on your message and some of it depends on your audience. So, for example, let's take Instagram as an example. I heard one influencer who was talking about Instagram Reels, 8-second Reels were performing the best. And this was about 6 months ago. And I experimented with that on my channel, and 6-second videos got nothing. Nobody in my audience wanted to watch those. But when my My Instagram reels are about 45 seconds a minute. They get lots of views, lots of engagement. People like that. But I know people who are doing, I have a client who's doing 7-second reels where they're not speaking on camera, but they're on camera doing what we call B-roll, which is they're not speaking directly to camera, but it's a picture of them doing something related to their business. And then they put text on the screen. They're doing 7-second reels and getting phenomenal results. Also on Instagram, I know somebody who does hour-long Instagram lives 7 days a week. And people are showing up, they're engaging, they're asking questions, they're staying for an hour. So it really depends on your audience, what they want, what they expect, and your ability to deliver it in an engaging, interesting way. And so it's a terrible answer, but then there's no one size fits all. And some of it is just you have to test. Some of it is you have to experiment. And some of it is like, there's an awful lot of people who would say, I would never go live every day for an hour. I'd rather stab my eyes out with a fork. And if that's you, don't do it.
Right. So you do have to kind of test and see what your audience wants, how your message is resonating. And then, again, I guess some of it will be platform dependent, that there are some places where people will sit and watch for an hour and some places where maybe they're not so inclined to do so. I would say, how much of this do you think is sort of algorithm dependent, in that what works in 1 month may not work 6 months later, and you just have to be aware of it? Or how much of it do you think is it's the audience you have, you can be consistent, and you'll probably continue to do well? Algorithm aside.
Some of it is the algorithm. So certainly, for example, Instagram Reels and Reels are on Facebook as well. They're a great tool for getting discovered by people who don't know you already. When I post an Instagram Reel, it is not unusual for me to have 60-70% of the people who viewed my video be people who aren't following me. So in that case, that's the algorithm, because it's what's pushing it out to new people. But if you're, on Facebook and LinkedIn, it's more likely to be shown to your existing audience. And that's where what your audience wants and expects is going to have a bigger role in what you do and who sees it, and is going to matter more about over the long term. Like, it's going to be more consistent, and like you said, even on YouTube, they've got now the YouTube Shorts, which is functioning in a very similar way as Instagram Reels formats. But, even on YouTube with the regular standard YouTube videos, there are some channels you see where they're 10, 15-minute videos, and there's some people having much longer tutorials. So it does depend on your personality, your style, what you're delivering to your audience, and what your audience needs and wants from you. And, but it also works in tandem with the algorithm. So for example, say you've decided, I'm going to do hour-long videos on YouTube, but if people only watch for 15 minutes, that's a really negative signal to the algorithm that people aren't finding your content engaging. So that's where you really need to be testing and see. Like, so if you see, okay, people are watching for 10 minutes and they're dropping off, you need to figure out, am I doing or saying something at that 10-minute mark where people are dropping off that makes people bored or makes people want to leave? Or is it that people, want a quick bit of information, but they don't want to continue? So it is a bit of a trial and error. But it's also something that can build over time. So when I'm working with students who are new to video, and particularly like a lot of my students are starting with either Facebook or LinkedIn because, I say, pick the platform you know the best. And I always say, start with aiming for 10 to 15 minutes for your first videos, because going a lot shorter, it's hard to be concise and share your information in a short period of time. But 10 to 15 minutes is really easy to fill that up without being too stressful on you. And then once you've sort of got comfortable with that, then you can start experimenting, scaling up and down size-wise, and see what people really want from you.
Yeah. And, going back to, again, we'll talk about the tech, but if you do 10 or 15 minutes, I mean, you should be able to also repurpose those into those shorts and those clips and being able to give people like little bites of what your longer form content would be. What are your thoughts on that, on making that 15 minutes of quality instead of the 1 hour, but then going back and figuring out how to edit it? Or nowadays, how many people can you hire outside that really are very good at just repurposing a video or repurposing a video into articles and, all kinds of things? I think that's a very powerful, I guess, extension of forcing yourself, if you will, if you're not comfortable, forcing yourself into doing video, as you do have kind of these extensions.
Yeah. So if you're wanting to repurpose, so say you've done your 10-minute video that's, say, 3 ways to do whatever. And so you would have 3 main points. There's a few things that you can do for repurposing it into YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels or whatever. And if you don't want to learn how to edit video and you don't have the budget to hire somebody yet, the simplest way is, as soon as you've completed your video, is pull out your smartphone, hold it up, and record a bunch of vertical videos of the exact same content that you just did. So if your video was 3 ways to do X, you can do one short video saying point number 1, point number 2, point number 3, and point it to your longer video. That's the simplest, easiest way to do it, because it's probably only going to take you an extra 5 minutes after you've just done your live video. And then now you've got a bunch of other content. You don't have to learn how to edit. You can just upload it to the TikTok or Reels or Shorts or wherever you want it to go.
Yeah, that's a fantastic hack. So you do the video and then you go back, and if you're doing the 3 points, just record the shorter bites. No stress. You've already said it once too. So I think the second time that you're recording probably feels a little better to say.
Yeah. So that's like kind of the low tech, low cost, simple way to do it. You can hire a videographer to edit the videos for you. There's also a lot of AI tools that will now take a video and they can create shorts for you. I haven't found one that I like yet. I've played around with a bunch and I find they cut them off in weird spots. And I've seen people who are clearly using the AI and just uploading them as is, and they'll sometimes cut it off mid-sentence, which is a little weird. So I haven't found an AI. Probably at some point the AI editing will get good enough to use, but the simplest is just do it as is. And then for creating blog posts out of your content. So I'm a big fan of, if you're consistently doing live videos that are, say, 10, 15 minutes long, you can absolutely turn this into all of your other content. So one of the things I do is I'll take a transcript of my live video, and so I use StreamYard when I'm going live to Facebook and Instagram. And
that was going to be my question, is where you get that transcript, because I don't know that all the platforms have that organically yet.
So StreamYard, if you have the paid version, it'll give you a transcript. But there's other tools that you can use. Otter.ai will do transcripts. I've got another one that I use for older videos that I had before StreamYard started the transcript, because that's a fairly new feature, called TurboScribe, which will do transcriptions for you. So I take the transcription, I will copy and paste it in ChatGPT and say, this is the transcript of a video. Please turn it into a standalone blog post for me. Please turn it into an email. Pull out a bunch of quotes that I can use for Instagram posts. And what I like about this is, because it's starting with my own words, it doesn't sound like AI. I mean, we've all seen people who are clearly using AI to create all their content, and it all sounds like a robot wrote it.
Right.
But when it starts with your own words and you're just asking it to edit it for you, then it still sounds like you. And it just speeds the process up for you.
Yeah. And a lot of these platforms, some of like the mini versions, they're free, right? So you could take your transcript, copy and paste it in there, and get your other content. And let me ask you, when you're doing this, I mean, you still are person in the loop all the way through, because you also get to edit your recommended, I guess, AI blog post or whatever to sound more like you if somehow the machine went sideways.
Yeah. And so because like, for example, I find ChatGPT is too much in love with adjectives. They use far too many adjectives. So I always have to go and like cut out some. But when it's starting with my own words, I find it's much more my style than if I said to it, write me a blog post about the exact same topic. It would sound very different. And I mean, anybody who does writing knows it's so much easier to edit a full page of text than it is to start at a blank screen. So the fact that it takes my words, massages it from my live speech to something in written form, and then I can just tweak it. And then the other thing I do, so for example, if I'm writing a blog post, yes, I'll take the transcript and write the blog post, but I also embed the video on the blog page because I just saw a stat recently. It's something, if you have a web page that has a video on it gets 41% more traffic than a similar web page that doesn't have video on it, because even Google now is favoring video.
That's interesting. And why do you think that is? Is this because of just the prevalence of video over the last number of years and people are more comfortable seeing it? Or is it that there's an expectation? Or, I mean, why? I guess a lot of us are used to seeing videos available on every social platform, right? Like you pointed out, you've got video on Facebook, you've got video on Instagram. Of course, there's YouTube Shorts. Now you've got TikTok.
Even Pinterest is pushing video now. So
wow,
everybody's pushing video. If you're putting video on your website and you're doing it because you want the SEO, the search engine optimization, if you can, but make sure your video is from YouTube and embed it, because of course Google owns YouTube. So Google does give preference to Google products. So if you have a YouTube video on your website, it's going to perform slightly better than a video from another platform. But it's also, we all know that people have different learning styles. So some people prefer to read, some people prefer video, some people prefer audio. So anything you can do to make it more comfortable for your audience, regardless of what the preferred medium is, increases the chance that people are going to spend more time engaging with your content.
All right. So let's talk about people who may be a little camera shy in the beginning. You mentioned something about B-roll and being able to maybe use some videos of you doing something and not necessarily sitting in a chair looking at a screen. Let's talk about that. Do you think that's as an effective tool as sitting down and talking to the camera?
I mean, it does depend on your audience. But for example, I have a client of mine who owns a chocolate shop, and he did this one video, and he doesn't show up on the video at all. But what he did is he was explaining how he gave the name for his shop. And his shop is named after his grandparents. And he was telling the story about how his grandparents had a store when he was young. And they were all about, family and connection and community and love. And he said, so I named my chocolate shop after my grandparents because that's the feeling I wanted to have for my customers. And he doesn't appear anywhere on the camera. There's videos of him, like, so, he's taking pictures of the shelves of all the chocolate. And then he ends the video on a photo of his grandparents that's sitting in his store. And it's a lovely video. And I can't help but think anybody who watches that video, they're never going to go to the grocery store and buy some cheap, nasty chocolate again. They're going to go to his store because, he didn't talk about, what type of chocolate he buys or the ingredients. He didn't talk about how he made it. He talked about the feeling he wants people to have. And it was a beautiful, lovely, touching video. And he doesn't appear in it at all.
And I bet
his voice is in it, but not his face.
But he did really well, I'm sure, with that video because people want to hear that story. They want to hear that background.
Well, yeah. What is it? Zig Ziglar said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Right. And so that's, something that you can do with these B-roll videos. Like if you're really terrified to be on camera, if you can have video of you doing something and, you can either If you have a tripod, set up a tripod and work at your computer. Or if you have a product-based business, do a video of you packaging things up ready to go. Or, even it could be you walking down the street or something. And if you don't have a tripod, get your kid or your husband. Although I have to warn you, my husband, I had him be cameraman for him one day, and he took, it was photos, not video, but out of 30 photos, there were only 3 that didn't have his finger in the shot. So pick somebody who can actually film without wrecking the videos. But you can take a bunch of clips and then, either do a voiceover or just text on the screen to share your message.
That's another interesting point, is there is software that can take photographs and stitch them together as well to create kind of a video background for a voiceover. And I don't know a lot of them, but I have seen in the past that you can have a photo montage where each photo lasts, 3 or 5 seconds or whatever, and it'll run through and it ends up looking like a video.
Yeah, so you can absolutely do that. I still am a fan. So if you're a coach or a course creator or a healer, or like some kind of service where people really need to trust you before they reach into their wallet to hire you, I still think at some point you need to bite the bullet and get your face and your voice on camera. But if you're not quite ready for that, a B-roll video or photos turned into video is better than no video. You're still ahead of the people that aren't doing video at all. And I am a firm believer of, imperfect action versus waiting for the perfect something, because the perfect something's never going to happen.
Right. But there are lots of industries where doing these kinds of voiceovers, B-rolls, and, using photos and things, especially if you're dipping your toes in, where at least you're putting some video into your marketing where maybe you really weren't doing it before. Because as you were saying, 41%, that's a huge number. That's a very big number of people who probably, I would say, consumers by and large are now maybe expecting video from businesses more than they did maybe in the past.
Well, and the other thing about video and showing up on camera is, we've all experienced, we bought something online that wasn't quite as good as we were expecting. And if you're providing a service, showing up on camera builds that trust just a little bit, because they can see, okay, you are a real person. You're not like some hacker collective in the dark web corner of the internet. Like, you're a real person, you're doing things, and they can get a taste of, what it might be like to work with you in a completely low risk way. Because if it's on your Facebook page or on your LinkedIn profile or on YouTube, they don't even have to give you their email address to experience your expertise and your personality and your style. So it is a very low risk way to start deepening the relationship with people.
Yeah, it's another excellent point, as people can find you and consume your content and get to know you and your business before they ever actually feel like they have to trade something like an email. And we saw in the wake of the online boom during COVID and a little bit after, as people got a little exhausted giving up their emails. And, nobody's really giving up, I don't think, their phone number unless they're ready to commit to like a second step or a third step. So, this is excellent. And thank you so much for this conversation. Where can people find you and learn more about you and how you work to get video into these businesses?
Well, my website is thebabyboomerentrepreneur.com. And you can also search Andrea Stenberg on all the social platforms, because I managed to grab my name before anybody else on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook. I'm very, also, it's lucky I'm not Jane Smith. Right? So
awesome. Okay. So we're going to put all of that down inside the show notes. So if you listen to this on the day it launches, or you listen to it a year later, you will be able to find Andrea and all of her links so you can follow her, lurk, watch videos, and, learn more about what she does and get in communication with her. So thank you so much for being here today. I think this is a great way to give people a reason to think about adding video if they're not already doing it, and those great hacks about how to do it low cost, low tech if you're first starting out. So thank you again.
Thanks, Dawn.
All right. I'll talk to y'all next time on the next episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to dawnkennedy.com, and you can now check us out on YouTube, as well as, of course, any of your favorite platforms that host podcasts. Take care.